Good morning, folks. It's Wednesday, 6th of May, and the news this morning. The UK has now officially become the country with the second most deaths in the world, according to statistics. Obviously, it's not a good milestone for us to have reached, and inevitably then the questions are being asked, why? Why is this the case? Did we handle all of this incorrectly, as it turns out? And no doubt, sadly, over the next year or so, we're going to see lots of inquiries, we're going to see lots of research done into the decision-making process, and truth will come out about mistakes that were made and what we should have done and so on. And really, it is going to be a bit of a mess. These things normally are. Finger pointing and passing the blame around follows usually. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. In much more positive news, however, things are still moving in the right direction, whether we've got it right or wrong anyway. And that's both here and really across most countries in the world. More and more stories of lockdown measures being lifted, exit strategies being drawn up are coming to light. And it seems that we're heading toward the end of what we could call a total lockdown. Now, I do think we still need to stay patient, brace ourselves. We are the second most affected country on earth, supposedly, so logically our lockdown ought to stay in place slightly longer than most places. The news this morning is that China are beginning to reopen schools. Germany's a fascinating case since they're making huge strides in lifting lockdown. Churches are reopening, lots of shops have reopened. They have plans to open restaurants in the next 2 weeks, and professional football is maybe starting up again by then as well. And it is fascinating because they're also putting in contingencies just in case things start to spread again. I think it's if there are more than 50 cases per 100,000 people, then they'll begin to lock down again. So we can see kind of what life post-lockdown will look like. But in the UK, we need to be a bit more patient. I believe Boris Johnson is going to be unveiling the lockdown exit plans a bit more on Sunday. So we'll have to wait and see what he says then. And really at this point, people are starting to reflect and ponder a little bit about the lessons we've learned during the whole thing and maybe what to expect in life after the lockdown is lifted. And I had a conversation with a good friend yesterday on the phone, and we were discussing how this pandemic has certainly resulted in a shift of pace in our lives. I wonder if that's the same in your case. Normally, one of the most common complaints you hear from anyone is how tired they are, or how they don't have enough time for this, that, and the other, or they just wish there were more hours in the day. And perhaps one of the silver linings of this whole situation has been that opportunity to slow down and to maybe make better use of our time. And I'm starting to wonder, what lessons are we going to take with us through to the other side of this? Are we going to carry this slower pace on? Or as soon as lockdown lifts, are we just going to fill our calendars, our diaries with stuff all over again, and everything kind of just goes back to the way it was? I, for one, am hoping to continue making more time for the Lord. Every day during lockdown, I've been able to make much more time for Bible reading, for prayer. I've made much more time for just simple, important things like sitting talking to people, maybe, on the phone certainly, but even my own wife in our house. I've made much more time for thinking and reflecting on various things, and all that has proved beneficial. And I do think a lot of this stuff is biblical advice and principles. The Gospels, they repeatedly tell of how Jesus got up early and withdrew to a solitary place to pray. So often he would just take himself off and be still and be with his Father in prayer. The Bible continually tells us to meditate on God's word day and night. It's not just a case of, read a couple of verses and that'll do. We're to meditate, we're to think it through, we're to mull it over every single day of our lives. We're also told to just simply even think and ponder about God and even wait for the Lord. So familiar verses from the Psalms come to mind. Psalm 46, of course, be still and know that I am God. Psalm 130, I wait for the Lord, my whole being waits. And in his word I put my hope. I wait for the Lord more than watchmen wait for the morning, more than watchmen wait for the morning. That's an incredible picture, as if we're just waiting, as if you're on watch, on lookout, late at night, waiting for the sun to rise. And even in the midst of pain and despair, we're encouraged to wait. Psalm 40, I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry, lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire, and so on. So one of the big lessons I've learned is the importance of just being still for more time in the day, how vital it is to make room in our supposed busy schedules to hear the Lord speak into our lives. There is a time for work, of course. There is a time for busyness in our daily lives, but we also have to make sure that we make room to sit at Jesus's feet. It's that whole Mary or Martha dilemma, isn't it? So while we're running around doing what we think is important and essential, perhaps sometimes God is saying, listen, come and sit at my feet, find rest in me. Something for us to ponder today, I hope. Until tomorrow then, stay safe and God bless.